All right, moving on to chapter 27. We're going to be talking about the Sounding Spring. This is Vivaldi and the Baroque Concerto. The Baroque Concerto is a genre that really solidified itself during the Baroque era, and this is the use of one or more featured instruments, so maybe even like a small little group, featured with a larger orchestral ensemble. And so you could have a solo instrument again with the large ensemble, or even like a trio or a quartet. And this gave different timbres to what people were used to hearing at this time. And because you could have, the virtuosity of that one instrument or maybe the few instruments against the backdrop of a larger ensemble. Now, the Baroque Concerto consists of 3 movements, and they usually follow an allegro, adagio, allegro format. So the first movement, allegro, meaning fast, and then adagio, a slower movement, and then back to the fast allegro. There were experiments in the sonority and the virtuosic playing. So different combinations of when the soloist would perform versus the large ensemble, or playing together, or interweaving their lines. And the first and third movements usually followed a ritornello form, and this is a refrain-based structure. The orchestral refrains would occur after the virtuosic outburst or episodes by the soloist. So the soloist would do something really crazy, and then the orchestra would do that refrain. And that refrain, since it was consistent, was kind of the unifying theme, if you will, of that movement. Now, the concerto was developed in Italy, and it was embraced by performers and patrons. The genre spread north, and then we hear the 6 Brandenburg concertos by J.S. Bach, so Johann Sebastian Bach. Antonio Vivaldi was one of the most famous and prolific composers of his era. But during his time, he was also he was more well known as a virtuosic violin player, but today he's known for both. So Antonio Vivaldi and the Solo Concerto. Vivaldi was born 1678, died 1741, and he was a Venetian composer, violin virtuoso. He was also an ordained priest, and he was nicknamed Red Priest because of his red hair. And here is a painting of him during his younger days. Now, one of his positions was the music master at the Conservatorio dell'Ospedale della Pietà in Venice. And this school was attached to a girls' orphanage, so he taught music there. And they would hold concerts, and these concerts attracted visitors from all over Europe. And because Vivaldi was working there, teaching there, training musicians, he was always writing music for this school. And he was renowned during his lifetime as a performer, and also nicknamed the father of concerto. And he exploited the contrast in sound, sonorities, and established the ritornello form. He also developed the violin style technique by writing, rapid scale passages, extended arpeggios, and contrasting registers. So scales, just like the like really quick passages like that, and then arpeggios. Remember, arpeggio is a broken chord. So if I have a chord with 3 notes, C, E, G, the arpeggio would C, E, G, C, E, G, like, and either going up or down, but he would expand past certain registers. So starting from really low to really high, and just using the entire range of the instrument. Instead of sticking to, like if you're looking at the keyboard, sticking to like this small section here, but utilizing the whole instrument. Now, he had a large output, over 500 concertos. That's why he was nicknamed Father of Concerto. 230 of them were for solo violin. He also wrote sinfonias, operas, and other vocal music. Now, program music. We're going to talk about Vivaldi's The Four Seasons. The Four Seasons are 4 solo violin concertos, one for each season. And this was considered program music because there's a literary link. Now, remember during the Renaissance and medieval period, we were talking about word painting and how the libretto or the text, the music would be enhanced or accentuate what was being sung. The same thing kind of applies in the instrumental music world, where you might have a poem or a story that goes along with the music, and the music would kind of display that action that was occurring, or the mood that was being set is tied to that music. So for the Four Seasons, each concerto was accompanied by a poem, and the poetry was printed above the passages of the music. And the music portrayed action and emotion of the text. So here in this painting is a concert by the girls of one of Venice's famous ospedali, or orphanages, by Gabriele Bella. Vivaldi taught music at the most prestigious of these institutions. And so you can see the girls up there on the top left, and then the audience down there at the bottom. And here's another painting. This one's titled In a Concert by Leonello Spada. The musicians play the theorbo, which is a long-necked lute, and Baroque violin. And here we also have a guitar sitting on the table. All right, so for Listening Guide 17, Vivaldi's Spring, this is from the Four Seasons. It's titled La Primavera from Le Quattro Stagioni. This is Opus 8, number 1, the first movement, which was published in 1725. So we have Allegro, remember fast, in E major. And the orchestral ritornello alternates with the solo violin episodes. And with the violin episodes, they depict sounds of spring. So, for example, when you think of spring, we can think of birds and their bird songs and the sounds that they make. So, to demonstrate that on the instrument, the violin, the player will play trills and high running scales. And then we have a storm section, and this is an agitated, repeated low notes in the strings, the low string instruments. And then we have a florid violin passage that leads into the final ritornello. So here's the breakdown again for the Four Seasons, the spring. And let's see, the melody is a flashy solo violin, fast scales and trills. And the ritornello acts as a unifying theme. It alternates with the contrasting episodes. So the episodes are the solo violin part, and the ritornello is the large ensemble orchestral part. And the timbre is the distinctive sound of Baroque instruments. All right, so looking at that ritornello theme, tum tum ta ta tum 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 ta ta tum 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 tum. And so that unifying theme alternates with the different solo violin passages. And that's it for chapter 27. Moving to chapter 28.